It's all about wealth creation, and wealth creation is all about freedom. Freedom to express yourself, freedom to build a better society, freedom to do anything you want. When you invest with the right people who can execute flawlessly on the future, that's growth. That's where the potential is. That's where excellence resides. My name is Ziad Abdelnour. I am President and CEO of Black Hawk Partners and founder and chairman of the Financial Policy Council. Thank you very much for coming here today. I see lots of new faces. We always like to see new faces. Really great to have you all in here. For all those who never attended any of our events, what is the Financial Policy Council? We're a nonprofit organization. We're apolitical, no Republicans, no Democrats. We're capitalist. Capitalist to the core. I love to say it in days like this, where everybody's talking about socialism and communism and Green Deal and all that kind of stuff. Forget about all this stuff. It's all about money. Creating wealth is the best revenge, because creating wealth is not for the sake of acquiring money. It's for the sake of freedom. Money gives you freedom. That's how I teach my kids. That's how you have to teach all your kids. We have to, change this tide that's coming, this socialism, communism tide that's coming to our shores. Financial Policy Council was created 9 years ago, July 2010. And that was the platform, is to lift people up, is to create wealth, is to bring in experts to talk about their experiences and how they create wealth. People with skin in the game, people who know what it takes to create wealth, not academics, economists. They know nothing. They pontificate. They never created any money. They pontificate and brainwash you as to how you have to be politically correct. Creating wealth is not the answer. You have to be, nice chap making a living. I'm telling you they're wrong. You want happiness? You're going to have to create lots of money. And there's nothing wrong and to be ashamed of creating wealth. Nothing. It's all what counts, because this is what brings you to freedom, and that's all what counts. So we've been here for 9 years. We've created already 50 events. We have around 250,000 followers on social media. So I think we're doing things right. Most importantly, what do we stand for, really? We're here to find solutions. We're not here to attack the right or the left or to bitch about this or that. To create wealth, you have to educate yourself. You have to know what's true and what's fake. And you have to find solutions. Very few people today have solutions. They complain. They get emotional. They play the victims. You find solutions. This is all what matters. Is content solution based on the right information, not disinformation. What we talk about is subjects very few people deal with, or stuff that you read in the papers, because it's from the horse's mouth, it's from the experts. It's all about success, is all about empowering people. How do you make money? By empowering people. Not me, me, me. I like the guys who join the organization or other things. They always think about themselves. What's in it for me? Even for the average person, it's all about what's in it for me. Well, you will never become wealthy if you keep thinking, what's in it for me? Never, ever. You will become wealthy by thinking about what void you want to fill in and how you can be of value to others. Once you are of value to others, you're going to make a lot of money. And most importantly, what we want to create here is not just, you guys coming in from time to time, attending an event. Yeah, okay, it's interesting. Screw that. We're here to create a club of deal makers and wealth creators. Our job is to create an army, thousands of millionaires and billionaires. Think about how powerful this is when you lift people up, help them become self-sustaining, and create an army of millionaires and billionaires. That's all what matters. That's how you're going to have power over any government institution. Once you make them feel less needed, the more you make them feel needed, the more power they're going to have over you, the more they're going to curtail your freedom. The more you're going to let them feel irrelevant, the more power you're going to have over government, over any controlling entity. Yes, it's all about power. Money and power. It's up for grabs, and the smartest ones are the ones who go and grab it, and nobody's going to give it to you on a silver platter. Nobody. Not even your family members. Some of them are jealous. Why should I have my brother make more money and more power than me? Not even your family. So stop counting on your family, on your business, corporate entity, on the government. Start relying on yourself. Be a self-sustaining cash machine. That's the only way, I'm telling you. You're going to really have freedom. You don't need anybody. Now, how do you do it? That's the key. You do it, number one, by interacting with people who think like this. That's what the Financial Policy Council is all about. Birds of the same feather flock together. You become the average of the 6 closest people to you. And that's reality. If you have 6 friends who are super accomplished and become friends to you, you can go places. If you have 6 losers who are bringing you down, you're going to become a total disaster. You know, these things, they don't teach them in college, in school. There's no financial education even. Who cares about algebra and geometry and irrelevant? This is what matters. A lot of the millennials are not aware of that. That's how they grow up now, voting, all of them, or wanting to vote socialism or communism. It's the easiest way. This is not a speech I'm doing here. I don't do speeches, okay? This is reality. And this is what the culture of the Financial Policy Council is all about. We're here to gather, empower, interact with the smartest people out there who know what it takes to make money and who know what it takes to build businesses. The more we do that, the more powerful we become and the wealthier we become. My legacy, and this video is going to be seen for the next 50 years, I want my legacy, I want to create as many millionaires and billionaires as possible. That's the biggest achievement as an immigrant to the United States that I can do. Not having a nice house with a picket fence, a couple of dogs, and a couple of cars. That's not an American dream. That's the American dream. If every one of us thinks like that, think about the impact you're leaving to society, your kids, your grandkids. And turn the tide from the disaster we are heading right now. Disaster. Anyway, I'd like to thank the board members who have sponsored all those events and who have been incredibly supportive of our activities throughout the last 9 years. Please stand up, board members. Also, I'd like to thank our 50 sponsors so far. Yes, so far, the last 10 years, we have today 50 corporate sponsors, from very small companies to mega giant companies. I'd like to particularly thank our sponsor today, Magic Number, for sponsoring this great event. So we have 4 panelists today, great group of panelists. Please meet our panelists, really super successful individual with skin in the game, who know what it takes to build businesses. Let me start with Hill Branscombe, co-founder and chairman of Geo Network. Harry Panapoli, chairman of the board and CEO of the CIC Group, and founding member of the Financial Policy Council. Joe Forbes, founder and CEO of COSIM Energy. And last but not least, Jinan Glasgow-George, CEO and co-founder of Magic Number and current sponsor of the event. Ladies, gentlemen, could you please share, each one of you, in no more than a couple of minutes, your personal and professional background? We can start with Joe.
Sure. My background started actually with the telecommunications industry. I worked with Bell South and Bell Labs early in my career, designed very complex wireless networks for a career, started an engineering business that designed probably 30% of the networks that you're using today on your smartphones. We sold that business to a public company, bought it back, and sold it again in 2001. And from there, I have been involved in a total of 7 companies. This is my 8th company currently. And we've had 4 public exits and 4 private exits, and we've been very fortunate.
Thank you. Harry?
Yes, thank you, Ziad. It's been a great journey for the last 9 years in this club. I'm very proud to be part of this. And I've been in the financial services industry for the last 30 years and worked with the Credit Suisse, BlackRock, Merrill Lynch, and now I've left last year BNY Mellon, about 7 years. What I learned in this process is there's no growth, or you cannot influence others to succeed also. So I left, and I've been investing in the fields of healthcare, education, and energy sectors for the last 10, 12 years. And I realized that I could share my experience and wisdom to others to succeed in the space, and Financial Policy Council for sure helped me in that direction. And now we just started a private equity fund called GITA Fund, G-I-T-A, Global Infrastructure Technology and Advisory Fund, focusing on AI, blockchain, crypto, and data science. And I've been personally involved in the India Smart Cities initiative, about 99 of them. We'll talk more about it later.
Thank you. Hill?
Yeah, my background is oil and gas exploration early in my career, and I left to San Francisco in, 1987 to build tools around improving presentation and sale of oil and gas exploration projects, which actually led me into creating technology which is best represented when you look at what Google has done with Google Earth. And that technology was licensed, interestingly, to every DVD manufacturer and DVD producer worldwide as a result of some support and some help. And currently, my project is in early stage development of what we call Geo.network, which is a platform for delivering a new asset class of real estate, which we call virtual real estate.
Thank you. Jinan?
Hi, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Ziad. I'm a recovered engineer, a patent attorney, and an investor, serial entrepreneur. I work with many clients whose technologies make up what contributes to smart cities in the United States and globally. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. All right, okay, so this is how it works for the newcomers. I'm going to ask them a bunch of questions, which they're going to address. And then I'll leave it up to you, audience, to ask them the questions you want. Those on this side will ask the questions on the microphone here, and those on that side will ask the questions here. So it's very interactive. We're not here to impose things on you. You can ask any question. There's no stupid question. Unless it's really stupid, then I'll stop you. So, you know, this is an open forum debate for you to learn. You're not going to get bored. We're not going to bore you with your questions, with my questions or yours. And we're here to address any questions. We're here to address things that you don't read in the press, you don't read in the media. We don't mind very controversial question, just let's get it done. First question, very simple question for all the people who don't know. What's a smart city? How do you define a smart city? If each one of you can briefly answer this, would appreciate. What's a smart city?
Smart city, from my perspective, is one that has thought through energy policy. I mean, what good is your city if the power's off, right? And there's a movement nationally and internationally, particularly overseas, around building smaller grids, both from a national security perspective and from an economics perspective. And so a smart city is going to have a smart distributed electric power grid in its midst, and it's going to have the ability to take on distributed energy resources, whether those are electric vehicles, whether those are storage, solar, or backup generation.
Great. Harry?
Yes, there are several things that a smart city has to address: water management, waste management, energy management, healthcare, education, traffic management, so many things. So the planet has got resources to cover about 10 billion people. If you don't manage them, the population is growing at the rate. It's going to be about 11.2 billion people by 2100. So if you don't manage these resources and consume them properly, then you will not have the people living in
Very good answer.
planet.
My answer would be sort of a bit different. A smart city is a complex of interconnected networks and devices of all kinds that are programmed to interact and improve the way in which our life is, our infrastructure is within cities, and how things work, with the scaffolding of rules and the ability to set their behaviors based upon what would be considered new social norms based around their behaviors.
Shilan?
I'm not sure I know what smart cities are yet. They don't exist. They don't exist yet. Even in the United States, we have smart meters, smart grid. It's stupid. Joe Forbes is in the electric power grid. Do you know how the electric company knows when you have no power? You call them. We don't have smart meters. We don't have smart grid yet. We don't have smart resource allocation yet. It's not just in the United States, I think globally. There are some technologies that may contribute to cities that have intelligence, that can meet our needs before we can ask for them, that can allocate resources efficiently, that can distribute power and know when it's working, when it's not. The technologies are here. There's no collection or aggregation of that yet, and that's the opportunity.
I love it. So, what is the closest city to a smart city today? Which city, according to you?
Oh, I think it's a good point. I think you have to look to China for that, because they have the most intelligent surveillance, even monitoring to the person. They manage resources, they allocate them how they wish, and the people seem to be satisfied. The compromise, freedom.
So basically what you're saying,
security.
yeah, but hold on. So the smart city, the technology will come at the expense of the privacy?
Currently it does. There's so much data required. Smart cities are sensors everywhere, in the lights, in cameras, about what you consume, even the power that you're drawing. That's data, that's information. I think it is absolutely at the compromise of privacy.
So what are the most important technologies required for smart cities to function? Energy?
I think energy is the most exciting because if you look at the electric power grid, I often refer to it as the world's biggest dinosaur and the world's smallest brain. And it has very limited capabilities to respond. And when I tell people about how stupid the grid is, you can think of the grid as one big monstrous lake. And all these monstrous power plants are throwing water into the lake. And then we're consuming power and drinking out of the lake. Lake level has to stay the same all the time for it to be stable. Well, what happens like we had in New York last year when it was 105 degrees for 7 straight days? Wholesale price of power spiked to over $500 a megawatt hour. So if you had a smart city that was able to put itself on its own demand response, to put itself on its own distributed resources, to have the ability to allocate those types of resources, then you essentially remove the risk of resiliency and remove the risk of failure while enhancing the capability for the city to operate.
Interesting. Harry?
Now, IoT technology and the artificial intelligence, by analyzing the data that the IoT devices are producing, that is the essence of this, as you're mentioning about the data science behind it. So let's say, for example, traffic management. As you travel on New York City, you have cameras all over, and the camera has to be a smart device to capture all the traffic and analyze the data and then automatically issue a smart ticket. Let's say you're speeding or passing a red light. And criminals going through, I think especially in China, they advanced in identifying based on the face recognition systems. That is also part of the AI. And the AI is going to be the part of the smart cities moving forward.
You want to add something, Hill?
My comment would be to focus upon what I consider to be sort of three-dimensional space, and every device and all of us independently have a location at any one point. Whether it's a drill bit under the ground or whether it's a drone flying in the air, we have the ability to map and deliver behaviors to those devices and add some semblance of management and control, and set rules for those existing devices in the current network infrastructure that we've built. So as we develop forward in a smart city environment by establishing a separate asset class, which is really virtual space or airspace, and establish some of the same rules and conventions that we've grown accustomed to in how we manage the sale of real estate, the management of real estate, the rule setting for communities. I mean, it's sort of, I look at like the Burger King analogy where you go get your sandwich and you sit down. We're taught to clean that up and take it away. And so I think a lot of smart devices that are being thrown into our cities need to have some of the conventions and the ability to regulate how they behave almost as individuals.
What are the specific companies that are making an impact on smart cities in the US? And what are really the obstacles they need to address? Specific companies.
For example, IBM.
IBM.
Up with Watson, IBM Watson.
Yes.
Especially in the healthcare side. And take Cisco, they have devices, IoT-related devices for communication point of view.
Yeah, sure, I've heard about a lot about it. Yeah.
So what I see, if I may, I think that the companies that are really making a difference in smart cities, it's the small companies.
You've never heard of it.
Because it's disruption. So it is really about the small companies that are innovating quickly, solving specific problems. The names we recognize, Amazon, IBM, Samsung, they're partnering with municipalities. One of the more recent...
I love this. I want a name of all these companies.
We want
to fund them.
I got a list.
We want to fund them.
I got a list. One of the most recent things I've seen about Samsung is announcing a partnership with utility Con Ed for smart lights, street lights. Whoa. That's going to be a smart city, right? When to turn them on and off. That already happens. The thing we really need is geofencing to manage drones, to manage devices. That's the Geo Network company. They're also able to do virtual real estate for easements and everything, automatically implemented. I think Cosm Exchange, they're like VisaNet for energy. If you have solar on your roof, you can't be compensated for that today. like a utility. Why not? Because the utilities and the large companies don't want you to yet. It's regulation.
Brilliant.
The disruptors are making it happen. Another company, Six Fusion, is edge processing. That's a word if you haven't heard about it. It means all of these sensors and devices, they're dumb. They need to be able to process data on their own instead of just pushing it all to the cloud. Communication is key, but it's not just Oracle and IBM and Cisco or AT&T or Verizon. It's the devices that may have power. DGS, Digital Global Systems, they're managing arena spaces and drones. Drone delivery by Amazon is not managed yet, but it will be. It's these disruptive early stage companies that are the real opportunity because no one yet has created a smart city and companies will need to aggregate. That means M&A activity. If you can identify the best companies first, that's where you're going to make your wealth.
This is priceless, what you just said. It's absolutely priceless. For all those of you in here who wonder, what am I going to do with my life? Stop playing a victim. Go and find those companies. Ride the curve. That's the future. That's the future. I mean, you hear it right here. Being a disruptor in those industries. Fund them. Execute on them. Build them up. And crush the competition, crush the big boys. My passion, my biggest passion, I'm a totally anti-corporate guy. I want to crush every corporation out there and encourage all the younger generation, you know, where money trickles down, to go and build these kind of companies. This is priceless, what she said. Absolutely priceless. You don't read this in any paper, encouraging people to go and back disruptive companies like that. Because you're anti-establishment by doing that. You shouldn't do that. You should be a nice boy, sit in your corner, and have a 9-to-5 job. It's a wake-up call. Joe.
Investing in those stocks will not.
No, not investing in the stock. Investing in them when they're early-stage private companies. I want the whole list. The whole list, please. We share it.
Got it.
Joe. What are the distributed energy resources and what solutions do they provide for smart cities, since you want to talk about energy?
Well, let's start with electric vehicles.
Yep.
Everybody that's driving an electric vehicle is driving a mobile storage device, right? If I take my electric vehicle and go to your house and plug it in, who gets the bill? You do.
Yep.
Why is that? That's because there's no communications that goes to a cloud-based system, that goes to a platform, that actually makes it so you can actually receive the bill from the smart meter to your house.
Wow.
We have that technology. So there's lots of things that, in my mind, energy is such a huge market and growing. You know, 1 in 3 humans in this world do not have access to reliable power. 1 in 3. So if you're looking for an opportunity to build a smart city, I think it's going to start off with locations that are outside the U.S. where you're not going to build legacy infrastructure. You're not going to build huge transmission lines and huge power stations. You're going to build solar and storage. You're going to build natural gas-based generation to actually make it so that you can prepare for growth. You're not going to go out and build these huge centralized power stations. So it's a big opportunity just in the energy space.
I will add to this.
Please, go ahead.
I invested in a company called Triton Solar, so which produces storage batteries half the size of Tesla and 3 times more efficient than Tesla. And now we are using the technology to build the battery stations where the car comes in, they change the battery and move on. Instead of filling the gas station, we just exchange the battery in a matter of a couple of minutes and then move on. So that is in the works right now, but that is going to be the future to make these electric vehicles more efficient.
It. You want to add something, Hill?
Yeah, you know, in the sense of GeoNetwork, we've developed a platform which is very similar to the way the internet started in naming websites. The difference is we actually allow you to purchase under .place, which is a top-level domain, your virtual real estate. And the way we do that is instead of applying an address to a website where when you enter your name, we actually apply it to a geometry which incorporates the area, the 3D area, which is the space. And with that component, we allow cities, municipalities in this case, since it's the smart city discussion, to apply taxation to devices if they wish. So scooters that are operating inside certain roadways work and don't work outside of certain roadways. When they operate, there's a micropayment that comes from our platform that delivers to the scooter and communicates to the city for micropayment. So we integrate geospace in 3 dimensions on the backbone of the internet in the way in which it was built. And in that way, we monetize, our customers monetize all types of applications and devices that they deploy.
Love it.
Something that's unique about each one of these companies that's disruptive is that they are all investing in intellectual property so that they have exclusive rights. They may or may not be the first actors in this space, but they have to make that investment in patents first and then launch. And there's a way to track that data. So those of you who are interested in investing in companies, you can see who is investing over time in which areas, and then determine in whom to invest. Combine market data and activity plus the investment in exclusive rights. Those will be the ones that will be the most valuable in the short term, and I think the long term.
If you ever need a patent attorney, hire her. That I promise.
Thank you.
For full disclosure. Jinan, what is the biggest challenge these companies have? Is it a question of capital or resources, people who know what they're doing? Is it human capital or really financial capital for them to accelerate their growth, be truly disruptive, and make a difference? Not just talk, but hey, what are we doing here? What kind of capital, what kind of resources, or is it both?
I think it's both. I think it's twofold. And so I know for a fact that both COSM Exchange and GeoNetwork are in fundraising modes right now. So for growth, capital, of course, is essential. But I think also the right people and right connections.
Yeah.
Because what is attempting to block a lot of disruption is the status quo. Utilities, as Joe was mentioning, don't wish to change. Municipalities are very slow to change. And so I think partnerships from the smaller companies to the larger will be important to make the bigger impact.
Will enough capital and human resources disrupt the status quo?
I think that...
Or is it just going to take a question of time to get there?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, we've been early, but we're one of the companies that made the decision to own the space from an IP point of view.
Yeah.
And that's a big bet. We've got millions of dollars invested in our intellectual property. But Qualcomm turned out to make a pretty good living off of intellectual property. Our view is that you're either going to embrace disruption, let us be partners, and we're going to help you, or we're going to tax you with intellectual property. That's not necessarily...
They're not going to help you.
I'm sorry?
They're not going to help you.
They're not going to help at all.
Of course.
But at some point, you will pay us if we have, fenced in, to use Hill's term, the outside space.
The question is that if you have the brightest minds around and really a war chest, real big box, can you disrupt the whole thing and circumvent them without even talking to them, going stealth?
Yes, absolutely yes. We've created the equivalent of what I call VisaNet for energy. Mm-hmm. And so we connect buyers and sellers of power, starting with distributed energy resources, so that we could bypass the market. And it's a big market.
That's the goal.
Yeah, I would like to extend on this.
Please.
I would like to give a little higher flavor of what is happening in the marketplace. So we are about 7.7 billion people on the planet. Mm-hmm. And by 2050, it is projected to be 9.8 billion people. By 2100, it's 11.2 billion people. On this planet, it is assumed to serve about 10 billion people for the current resources that we have. Mm-hmm. And there's enormous opportunity to optimize this resource utilization so that we could all survive on this planet. So that's the reason we need smart cities to conserve these resources. Yep. And right now, the governments and some bigger companies are monopolizing this talking about disruption. I think these companies can offer fee for service. The governments do not have enough cash to make them smart themselves. For example, I'll quote, in India, there are about 99 smart cities, projected to have about $1.2 trillion market for the next 10 years. But the government barely released about $30 billion. It's not even a drop of what is needed. So there's all these companies, even the disruptors and the major companies, can bundle up the services and offer and collect the fees. That way you can disrupt, you can throw away the governments and the monopolies and all of that. That's what I think there's a great opportunity here to invest into this space.
Yes.
In our case, it's actually, besides the human capital issue, which is always a challenge when you have the Apples and the Googles and those companies buying every really quality talent that comes out of the colleges. Besides that issue, what's interesting for us is the disruptors are making our market, because by just saying, look, we don't have all the rules, we don't really know where this is going, but we are going to go into business by disrupting our market. So if you look at what's happened in Austin with the scooters, and I love this analogy because I've been witnessing it. Yeah. Lime and all these companies have just thrown scooters out there and just left them, and 40,000 students meets 10,000 scooters, and it's mayhem in Austin, Texas. And there's no rules. There are no rules. The scooters go everywhere they want to go, and they all hours of night. It doesn't matter, and they're dropped off and left. And so, in essence, the device disruptors are actually making our business.
Nice.
You need customers. So I think that's part of the solution. If you're really offering a solution, people will want to use your platform, your software, or your service. And part of what we see in the geo network, as Hill just mentioned, is that there's already a need, a problem created by a disruptor. Solve the problem. They do that by the geofencing, by automating a lot of this. It's never been easier than today because of the blockchain, because of smart contracts. There can be automatic implementation of rules. What we see in the energy grid is many, many people are installing solar. In fact, solar fields. How do you monetize that? How do you get paid for it? Someone forgot the payment side. COSM has provided that.
I see.
So people can join when they want to, one at a time. That's a great way to implement the disruption, I think.
All right, let's go even more specifics, okay? Let's cut the theory. Assuming each one of you is running a family office and have $1 billion to play with in that space, how could you be dangerous, lethal, and disruptive? What would you do with this $1 billion? And be specific. Don't tell me I'll invest in this and that. Be specific. What would you do to disrupt and piss off everybody? And how would you do it?
We would displace the existing market systems that are currently in existence, like ICE. We would disrupt the Energy Reliability Council of Texas's financial settlement system. We would go after the New York Independent System Operator. Anywhere where there is already a decoupling of power from generation, transmission, distribution, and there's retail choice, we would connect willing buyers and willing sellers. And by doing that, we would completely disintermediate about 50% of what is the value chain currently. And the utilities would probably put a contract out on me if I decided to do that.
Where would you start? What's the lowest hanging fruit? That's broad stroke. The lowest hanging fruit, where would you start?
We would start in places like Texas and Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, independent system operators. That's because the rules are such that it's very liquid, and it's very easy to implement disruptive technologies, and they have growing economies, so therefore they have growing power needs. That's where we would start, those two markets specifically.
Is $1 billion enough to make a dent?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't think I actually don't think that we would need $1 billion. I think that you'd be surprised at how little money we would need to actually pull that off.
No, but I want to take $1 billion and use it.
Well, we'll take $1 billion and then expand it overseas.
Okay.
Where there is no market. For example, if you had to go and try to implement something in Africa.
Yes.
How in
yes.
the world would you do that, right? There's no financial settlement system in Africa.
There's
for power.
nothing.
There's nothing. Not even, you don't have to go that far. Go to Latin and Central America, where, you know, still state-run, government-owned utilities, and yet people are starved for power and they have brownouts all the time.
I mean, you basically, you do that, you own cities. You have them at your little feet.
You own cities and you own regions. But what you do is you put willing buyers in touch with willing suppliers and willing customers. And when you do that, you completely disrupt the infrastructure of the status quo.
Harry, same questions.
So I would invest, the biggest thing consuming in the smart cities is the transportation system. And that's where there's a huge need of disruption required, especially in the power sector. As you said, the battery storage technology is very crucial, and we are not able to store efficiently and deploy that energy properly. So that's where I would spend my $1 billion, and this is a global market, just not in the US. And I would start with building a smart storage technology, and then make them replace the conventional energy places like gas stations, replaced with battery stations where people come in a matter of minutes, switch the battery and move on.
Hill.
Pretty simple.
Be as imaginative
I
and
need
creative as you can
$2
be.
billion, but we're in the startup program with a company called Esri, and Esri is owned by one gentleman, and they own 40% of the world's GIS marketplace. And what that means is all the companies that map their pipelines in cities and draw their maps and know where all the infrastructure lies is under the control of his product, ArcGIS. So I would probably go out and acquire Esri, and through that bring in 80% of the municipalities that currently exist.
Is it a private or public company?
It's a private company owned by one gentleman.
Yeah.
It's a very smart company. And all the infrastructure, city infrastructure, I think they have 80% of the municipalities under license. I think 80% of the US municipalities use ArcGIS to map their infrastructure. And what then we would do with that is to allow them to take those geometries, convert to our format, and be able to deliver those geometries to devices for all types of applications.
Thank you, Hill. Janan.
With $1 billion.
Yes.
I would aggregate. Because as I said at the beginning, there's no one company that has all of the solution.
Yeah.
You have to have power and energy. So I like the COSM exchange. I'm buying that. I like the geofencing technology. I think that's important for administering what's happening with drones and UAVs. The transportation item that Harry mentioned is covered there. I think I would look at a company like Gridix, that it's a private early stage company that is administering all of the rules and zoning in 3D for cities.
Wow.
With the click of a button, you can imagine what would it look like if we made this change or that. Which buildings affected, who owns them, and what changes to be made. I think that's an interesting play. I think you'd have to piece together something like the 6 Fusion company I mentioned. They're competing with Red Hat, just acquired by IBM, for billions. Like that's a multiplier there, is being able to own edge processing, infrastructure as a service, because you're going to need all this data processing that's not being used today. There's a lot of computing power that's wasted. Obviously, there's power to be managed there. I'd look at some solar companies and battery storage that Harry mentioned. What good is it to have the solar power if you can't use it whenever you want to? You need to have some form of energy storage. So I'd acquire a company or two there. I would package that. And I think the interest there is going to be also on the data. Look, Google bought Nest for $3.2 billion for thermostats in homes.
Unbelievable.
I'm going to turn my billion into 10 billion with this aggregation approach. And I think it's buying companies like 6 Fusion, Gridix, GeoNetwork, COSM, investing in them.
Just look at what happened when the founders of the internet established their addressing system, the IPv4 system. we've run out of internet addresses for devices. And they've devised IPv6, which is, I don't know what happened to IPv5, but IPv6 has been devised, and it's in effect limitless in terms of its mathematical computational address system. But in looking at the population growth, the demand for autonomous fixed and mobile devices, and you take this conglomerate of numbers, it all has to go out to the edge some way for these devices to operate reasonably. And so the edge, the way in which edge processing happens is critical to the behavior and success of smart cities.
That's the biggest play ever. Forget about social media, all this. This is building cities. Yeah. Literally, the cities of the future. Yeah. Wow. Okay, I mean, one last question I have, then I'll leave it up to the audience. So how does the average investor make money if they want to be involved in these kind of plays? You know, the average accredited investor. How do they go about it? Buy public stock, invest in private companies, early stage. It's illiquid. So what do you propose? How do you democratize this great play? How do you democratize it to the public?
Well, in my case, I've raised a lot of money in the past from various private sources, and so we're doing that again. But I stay away from venture capitalists because most of those guys are going to hell.
Yep. I agree with you.
And they're not your partner, they're not your friend. So we've been focusing on...
So I'm sorry, Joe, so what's the average ticket of what you raise from 100,000, more, less?
$150,000 to $200,000.
I thought so, okay.
Typically is a slug. And we're trying to raise, just in our Series A, around $5 million, because we think that gets us to a B with a huge bump in valuation.
And so, the $5 million, that's a pre-money of how much? Come on. Look, I'm trying to help you here.
Sure. No, pre-money of $30 million.
Wow. Do you have actually any revenues?
No. It's all IP and platform based.
How much skin in the game you have?
$5 million a month.
Ah, that's very good. Okay, Harry.
Yes, yeah, we focus on the smart city technologies. We launched recently a Gita fund, so which primarily focusing on AI, blockchain, crypto, and data science. Data, we feel, is the oil for the future to derive anything out of it. And we have a soft commitment of about $250 million, and we are going to be close to $1 billion by end of this year. And again, primary focus is on the technologies that are going to drive this future of the smart cities.
So what's the average investment?
So it's about close to $5 million right now, commitment.
So it's more like an institutional play?
Yes.
Unlike you, it's more like a...
We are more of an institutional play, yes.
Yeah, more of an institutional play. And you want to raise how much to 250?
Right now we have a soft commitment of 250, and going to be $1 billion by end of this year.
Okay. How much skin in the game do you have, guys?
Myself, I have about close to $5 million myself into this play.
Okay, good.
So we're at early stage, just starting our A-round offering. We're split with about $4 million paid in convertible debt is our structure. Half of that is an industry company called Donuts Domains, which provided us our top-level domain .place as an asset. Donuts recently sold to a fund, Abry, out of Boston, just to follow them through a bit.
Abry Partners? Mm-hmm. Okay.
The other 50% is 4 partners, which are the founders, and friends and family. We've been 4 guys working unpaid for 2.5, 3 years, 15 patents issued, 20 more filed around a space. We've been allocated and approved by ICANN to deploy a matrix of web addresses for the purposes of creating a new internet property. And our funding plan is a valuation somewhere between 30 to 50 million, depending upon $5 to $10 million raise. And
Series A?
Series A. And we're hopeful to have a strategic partner with us in the marketplace at that time. So we have several very large companies that are looking at proof of concepts. One of them is at early stage discussions, but it's one of the ones you'd want to have as part of your rollout. So we're optimistic that we can raise $5 million at 30.
So it's more an institutional play than a retail play?
It's hard to say. I mean, right now we're just four guys, raising money. So I mean, we need to find friends and family. We need to continue our capital raise to continue to grow and deploy our team. But we're far enough along now where we're delivering .place domains. So you can purchase, we've converted 130 million parcels into our format, and if you want to buy your .place, you can go online. We'll be able to go online when we release it and type in your name. We can take through Melissa data that you own your property, and we can deliver to you your .place. And that parcel boundary is virtual. So as we build partners in applications and autonomous lawnmowers that mow your yard, you can begin to establish the rules on your property by just logging in and putting in your rules. If you want Amazon, when they're delivering through drones to deliver the dog food away from the dog, you can set the location by having your own geodomain. So we've actually created what is a brand new internet property, which is compatible and formidable with the existing domain name service, which is currently how it works now. So instead of a domain, a geodomain points to a geometry which we deliver to the device and with the rules. And so the device knows if it's close to that area, how to behave. And that's similar to the way the internet works now, where when you type in a name, it takes you to a server that delivers your web page. So they're very similar.
So in those three instances, you, Harry, and Joe, these are all blind pool funds? Yes.
Answer your question again, I'm sorry.
Are these blind pool funds? It's a blind pool of money?
It's structured. So
GPLP blind pool, you would go and take the money and invest in anything you want.
No, we invest
in that space, of course.
In that space, but it's we have private placement memorandum that you could get just like you would if you're raising money through approved process. It's a Reg D based fundraise. It's not something that you would expect to see on the back of a napkin. It's a professionally run fundraise.
Okay.
Again, we've done this before.
Okay, but there is no specific target you're going after. These are blind pools of capital.
We're talking to strategic investors, but we're also talking to private investors.
Yeah, I'm sorry, let me explain further on this blind pool thing. When it's a blind pool, is that people give you the money, you go use the money at your own discretion to invest in whatever you want to invest. You don't have a specific thing you want to invest in. This is a blind pool. This is what you're doing.
It's a blind pool.
Whether private or institutional doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's money that is used per the Series A PPM, but it is for the use of the business.
Okay. Okay, clear.
In our case, purely, yes.
Yes, okay. Okay.
Blind pool, but written around a business plan, so the investor knows what the general use of proceeds will be. And we're very specific about it from a board perspective. I mean, we meet every 30 days and look at our use of funds. Okay,
I have a suggestion, but I want to hear Jinan first on this topic, and then
what I think we're trying to offer through magicnumberip.com is information to help you find the areas where you want to invest. We identify companies that have been investing in the technologies and who have market traction or impact, whether they're very early stage or more advanced. We help with comparison. Normally, the value of the intellectual property is higher when you're near where larger companies are investing. So we're offering information to guide decisions.
That's true.
I personally have invested about $3 million in various companies, including 2 companies here, but also a number of others. Again, I think there's a lot of areas. We typically support investors finding where they already have expertise, connections and information, and finding the opportunity first before the valuation is too high.
I get you. Wouldn't it be more profitable if you rather identify a specific company which you've studied very well, the lowest hanging fruit, where you can have the most impact investing in this company and executing on the plan, rather than a blind pool, going and spreading yourself a bit too thin, rather than going after a specific target that is a bit more ahead of the proof of concept, that has shown already some traction, that has shown something where your dollar can accelerate much more because they're proven the concept. They may need more money, but it's much easier to raise the bigger bucks, as you know, than raise $10 million. Especially that now we're talking in the $1 billion mark, we've elevated the standards. So, you know, even if they want like $300 million, said, look, we know the industry, we have skin in the game, I get $300 million, you can have 1 or 2 family offices you can put in after you $300 million, you know what you're doing, the way you express yourself, and scale it much more aggressively. Then go, I mean, it's just a thought, which I'd like to hear your responses, just to scale your businesses much faster, and go into a specific company. This is why I asked you, Joe, at the beginning, the lowest hanging fruit, which is something you know very well, the energy sector or space, rather than spread yourself too thin like that. I mean, just a thought. What do you think?
If we were to raise $30 million, I have at least 1, possibly 2 companies that we would go buy right away that does not have the capability of producing the product that we have, but it's already in the existing marketplace using dumb settlements. Mm-hmm. So that's what we would do, and that would accelerate growth, but then you have the headache of the integration that you have to deal with. Always when you have a legacy company like that, particularly one that you're going to transform it from an old business model to a new business model.
Yeah.
But you would have instantaneous market share, and that would be worth it.
Definitely.
You know,
what's your thoughts on this, Harry? Hold on here. Go ahead, Harry.
What we're trying to do, Ziad, is we're identifying companies with technologies in these 4 areas, like AI, blockchain, crypto, and data science, that have potential for scaling globally.
Of course.
And
that's what I'm talking about.
We are identifying those companies and putting our skin in the game to take them globally. And we have an advisory as well as investment wing, both. So that's what we are focusing on.
Okay.
So first off, we are. I mean,
I'm sorry, first off?
We are actually talking to, there are three companies, and we all probably pretty much could guess which ones they are that would be our best strategic investor. Mm-hmm. And we are in with one, and we're having a second very high-level discussions with them. The problem that I've had in the past is that, you know, if you're not ready, if you don't have a strong enough asset base and you take it to one of those companies, you typically enter the middle management framework, and within that middle management, they see something that they're tasked to do, or if they may have missed something, you find a little bit of large company competition where they will sort of just it sort of becomes their idea pretty quickly. So it's sort of a strategic decision even to go.
Yeah, it is. I mean, everything you do is a strategic decision, of course, but look, what we're talking about, finding the lowest hanging fruit, whether transportation, whether energy, whether whatever different sectors you described here, and really go after it, you know, in a major way, and scale it to the maximum. The least headache, the maximum impact. I mean, as Jinan said, how do you grow $1 billion to $10 billion? You see, most entrepreneurs, the mistake they do, I deal with tons of them over the last 30 years, is that they get too enamored in the technology, and they forget that they're here to make money. Bottom line. Because it's not their money, so I don't care, you know, some idiot is going to fund this company, you know, that's fine. I like the technology. It's a sexy technology. I don't care about technology. How do you really make the most money impact this? This is what, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying most entrepreneurs, especially the younger ones, this is the enamored how sexy the technology is. I don't care. What I'm trying to say here is that yes, there's tons of sectors, in this space. Which one do you go after? Which one is the most scalable? Which one is the more where you can put in the most amount of money and have the maximum impact and grow this 1 billion or 100 million into a tenfold?
It's the biggest pain point.
Please.
It's finding the biggest pain point.
Exactly.
It's finding what has not been solved, matching the solution and making that your connection and moving it. And I think you have to have knowledge of the market you're going into, whether it's energy, whether it's big data, whether it's geofencing, whatever. edge processing, finding the pain point and offering the solution and pressing that focus, I think focus.
I totally agree with you. This is what most entrepreneurs, I'm not saying you guys, in general make. They rush too much, too fast, into things without doing their homework. Look, for me, business is war, okay? You're gonna laugh, but it's true. Business is war, and the people who win wars are not the people who are the smartest ones. There are lots of smart people out there. They are not the people who have the biggest checkbook. There are a lot of people with lots of money. It's neither being smart nor having money. It's how you gather intelligence, how you discover something that nobody knows, and you go after it. Give an example, whether in business, in politics, in everything. We went after the Iraq War. It cost us $6 trillion, 5,000 lives, because we had no intelligence, or the wrong intelligence. A lot of people will go every day in business over this and that. They do not have the right intelligence. A lot of people rush too much. They make a decision on buying a company or investing in a company like they're buying some furniture or some car. You know, that's the wrong thing. I'm not saying they're doing that, but business is war. You've got to find the right company, and you've got to find the right chemistry with management, of course, because it can be a great company. If you don't agree with this guy, how are you going to do business with him, whether US or international? So, look, I understand what you're saying. It's just we're brainstorming here. We're just brainstorming. I'd like to leave it to the audience. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tim.
All right, so Harry talked a little bit about the traffic cams and AI, and okay, I don't really like that because I get caught too much. We talked about the virtual city, or the virtual properties, where you can bring a scooter in and talk about and tax scooters in a certain area. Something, I mean, more taxes, I don't like that. Then we talked about China and the massive surveillance system in the smartest cities in the world. I don't like that. Tell me what benefits would I have to move into a smart city? What are the good things for me as a consumer?
It's obvious. Were you awake all this time?
Yeah, well, sure.
I'm kidding.
So actually, every smart city focuses on citizen services. You as an individual receive some services. It could be electricity, or it could be internet, or it could be television, or it could be education, or it could be any of these things that focuses primarily, all these things boil down to providing you as a citizen the services, and in a smart way, in an efficient way, and in an effective way. That's what I think you will benefit. For example, in New York City, you are probably, I don't know, maybe living in the New York City, right? It's very crowded, and you need to have a better way of transportation and better way of healthcare, better way of education to your children. All those things are services offered by a city to you. I think ultimately boils down to those services as a citizen you're going to receive.
Cheaper, more cost-effective, faster, less headache in anything you do.
It sort of lengthens your lifespan. So what the smart city is doing, I think, is actually giving you something that you can't make, which is more time. It's kind of it's decreasing the waste of time you have, and you can't afford to waste your time. So it's kind of giving you more life in a sense.
I'll quote one example. Recently, Mexico provided an online service of providing a birth and death certificate. People used to spend 10 days, 5 days going around the offices to get those basic things. That is part of a smart city service offering to a citizen.
One of many.
Yeah.
I came at this from an energy perspective. Let me scare you, since you're standing up. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the feds, the people that regulate the entire electric power grid, published a report that said if 9 key transmission interconnect substations were hacked or taken down, the entire U.S. grid goes down. How about that? How's your smart city going to function? Now, if I'm in a smart city and I have, or a smart house for that matter, and I have my own microgrid, that doesn't affect my life. If I have a natural disaster event, that does not affect my life. By the way, there is no restart procedure for that to happen in the US. So that'll make you feel warm and fuzzy. But if you had a smart city that had power resiliency, that wasn't dependent just on the macro grid, I'd move there tomorrow afternoon.
I mean,
Thank you. Thank you.
Uber, just real quick, Uber is really an example of two devices, actually two devices working in a smart city. I mean, they're two phones that are connecting a transaction that are providing you better and quicker services.
Thank you, Hill. Go ahead.
The point of pain is the haves and the have-nots, and I think that all of your technologies are exchange technologies, where you're putting people together and you're actually educating people to how they can not just be a buyer, but they can also be a seller. And I think that if you can, what are your plans to really educate, to connect the 6 billion or 6.5 billion people who are not profiting from what we're doing to open up that market, to really take advantage of really what you're doing, because you're really creating a fair exchange like never before, but we have to educate people who've never been included. So what are our educational procedures?
I think the democratization of the service offering to citizens, that is the underlying criteria for any smart city to happen. I think it's a valid point. All these 7.7 billion people, if they can access services of their choice and they're willing to pay the price, if that market can be created, it's an enormous market to disrupt the legacy systems.
Yep. Thank you. Please.
We've talked a lot about investing in the right technologies, but how do you figure out the right team and the right people to invest in?
Look, I mean, why are you looking at me? Look, finding the right people is not something you learn in business school or anywhere, or even your parents teach you this. It's the more you interact with all kinds of people throughout your life that you get to know the people. I'll give you an example. And I'll give you a very short, simple example. When I hire people to join Blackhawk, you know, a lot of there are very smart people out there who know how to hide things. How can I ask them one question only and get them naked in front of me? They cannot hide this. How can you get them really naked in front of you? With one question, I tell you what the question is. This is how I discover what's really in their belly. A lot of people will hide it to death because they feel vulnerable by showing you that. So I get them to say it without even realizing much later that they said it, and they're exposed now. What is the question? The question seems stupid, but it's intentionally stupid to see how they react. The question is, it took me years to figure this out. What pisses you off? Now, anybody who answers me the question or tries to answer me the question, what pisses them off, is trying to please me because they need the job. Oh, really, there's nothing really that pisses me off. That's even worse. That's even the worst of the worst. There's nothing that pisses me off. I'm a fine guy. No. All of these guys are not even hired. That's it. They are written off automatically. The only right answer, what the hell is this question? People who challenge you in that, these are the people with fire in their belly. Don't tell me what pisses you off. Now, a lot of people may think like this. You know what? What is this kind of question? But they don't dare saying it. Saying it shows me what kind of person he is or she is. And the best ones are, what the F is this question? You know? Because people who can challenge their bosses, their future bosses, are the people we work with, are the players with big brass balls who will challenge you just to tell you this is crazy, what you're asking. A lot of people think like this in life, but they don't dare saying these things. And those people who dare are the people who get to the top, because they attract others like a magnet. How does he have the guts to say this? Because they want you to conform. I don't want employees to conform. I don't want rebels, misfits, mavericks, crazy, dangerous people who want to change the world. If not, I'm bored to death with having yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. You know what, let me tell you something. If two people agree on everything, one of them is not needed. I don't need people to agree with me. How do I vet people? This is how I vet people. You know, somebody very dear to me told me one day, and it's true, it's really my father. Before I came to the United States, he told me, I want to give you one advice. That's all what matters. When you deal with people in business, don't look at their nationality, religion, color, gender, education. I told him, so what's left? He told me, all this stuff doesn't matter because we're all human beings. What matters is three things. These are the people you want to do business with, because these are the people who are going to be your best friends and allies and who are going to take you to the next level. All the rest, they're losers. Don't talk to them. Number one, they're people with guts, real guts. If you're not dealing with people with guts, they're going to pull you down. Oh, you know, you don't have to do this, relax, don't rock the boat, don't do this. No, I want people who are going to tell me, I don't want you to rock the boat, I want you to break this boat and build a new one. More aggressive than me. Two, people with brains. If you have the guts and no brains, you're a loose cannon. If you have the brains and no guts, you're a bureaucrat. There's tons of them around. Tons of pencil pushers, you know, people who write things. They're bureaucrats. They don't have any guts. They will never be billionaires or anybody. And three, equally important to the brains and the guts, is heart, compassion, caring for other people, wanting to lift them up before you lift yourself. Not take, but give, give, give. Smart people recognize you're giving. Smart people recognize you're empowering them. Smart people recognize what you're doing and how good you're doing and how good you're changing the world. They will come to your support. You don't need to ask them a favor. You don't need to take anything from them. This is what makes a man. A successful guy who will one day have a very big chance of becoming a billionaire. You give, you empower people. Success is about empowering people, not empowering yourself. What they taught you at school and college is wrong. It's not empowering yourself. Think the last about yourself. How do you empower all these masses? How do you educate them? How do you empower them? How do you lift them up and have the guts to do it and the brains to execute on it? That's how you judge people. And you know what? It doesn't take more than 5 minutes for me in discussion with somebody, one-to-one, one-on-one, to tell you if this guy is worth this or not. Is it check or is it X? Very simple. It's not what he says about all the small talk and, oh, I went to Harvard Business School. Who cares about Harvard Business School? Most of them are morons at Harvard Business School. Seriously, and all that Ivy League, they live in their ivory tower. They think they're all the chosen people, the best of the world. A lot of them are poor. A lot of them have done nothing in their lives. Zuckerberg told them, screw you, Harvard dropout. Bill Gates, same thing. So don't be impressed by the names and the titles and how people look. A lot of people look at your style today. Substance. And the only way you get substance is by asking the tough questions and see how they react. The really tough questions. And don't be afraid, oh, you're going to embarrass him. Embarrass him. The smart people knows how not to be embarrassed and answer you to that. And the moron will embarrass himself even more. Be bold, daring, and have a big heart. Connect with people. They're not your enemies. If you know how to deal with them, you're going to go very far. That's the best advice I can give you. And I hope you'll remember it years from now.
Thank you.
I think if I also interpreted your question about how do you judge people that you're investing in or hiring, if you will, We are always looking for people who are exceptional. That is, they don't follow the rules. But we look for 5 things. People who are smart, not just intelligent, but smart. You got some street smarts because you earned it from skin in the game. Curious. You're going to explore something, right? Because it's not always going to be handed to you. You need to explore and figure out what's happening. Look behind what's obvious. Creative. Because there isn't anything that's just cut and dry, right? You have to break ground and do something that's new. Proactive, because it's not coming to you. You have to get out and do it, right? I want people who are doing that. They're proactive. They don't wait to be told. They figure out what to do and they try it. And finally, team players. I don't know how many of you guys played sports, but you win as a team. If
Always.
you have been a team player, and that's the compassion part, you are together, you act as one, and that's when you win. You can't win all one superstar.
Nobody wins on his own. Absolutely agree. Teams win. Nobody wins on his own. And the team people, they're going to have the same kind of culture. If not, you're going to keep fighting with them forever, and nothing's going to get accomplished. So from the beginning, you have to make the right decision. You know, I mean, it's not like, this stuff you have to feel it, you have to, and you know what, whatever I tell you, she tells you, unless you experience it many times, and a lot of people, it's never gonna really sink in. It's like when you tell your kid, don't do this. He's gonna go and do it. Whether you tell him or not, he wants the experience. Well, the same thing here. But this is, I totally agree with Jinan, what she's saying here. Anyway, please go ahead. So, Naya.
I have 2 questions. My name is Olga, and I have discussion with some of you before this event. So I was fortunate to be in China last year and to be really deep, let's say, in the belly of the Chinese government when they discuss smart city development. So I see, probably I saw many things that they do not publish yet. So this is always in smart cities 2 sides, is the government, is citizen, and between them, it's in future, it's supposed to be like a big social network of the gadgets that's supposed to make the life more transparent and manageable from the both sides. So citizens can talk to the government through this, and it makes their life better. And the same way to the government, the system, make the managing of the infrastructure.
Excuse me, what's your question?
The question is 2 big problems that I see in this space. First is cybersecurity, because it is too many players now, and many different solutions. But the cybersecurity should work for everyone if we want to create the infrastructure. I don't know how to, like, I know here are some experts who work in this, but how you guys work with this in your products. And the second question is how to overcome this. We have a lot of privacy here in US. And I told you, Jen, today that I was terrified in China when I saw my face on a screen with the woman, like gender, race, age, everything, like, you know, and you just walk on the street and they know who you are. So when we will come to this point and how we will overcome this fear on our side to make our life so transparent?
We are already there.
I feel there is no privacy anymore in the digital era. So I was in Singapore, and one guy spitted on the street, and he thought nobody noticed him. When he was exiting the country, they showed his video and fined him $2,000 or serve 1 week in jail. Like, there's no privacy anymore. It's you need to decide how much you want to expose. I think it's very difficult to say privacy rights will be protected. It's not easy then said and done. So
there's no more privacy.
I think when you walk on New York City, you are monitored every block, you know, how much you're walking and where you are, where you stopped, and what you did, everything. So and
they can go back on video and see where you were
exactly.
3 years ago in a video clip, etc., doing what, to where, how. Not now, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's to that extent. Maybe the only place I know which really has some kind of a privacy is Switzerland. It has some kind of privacy. Because a lot of it is not, a lot of people, a lot of high business, they don't even use email. Because they don't, everything is done still by courier and stuff like that. But this is in all villages. But in general, the whole world is moving towards that. But so if you want to trade off security to privacy, You know, security is the name of the game because, I mean, look, if you want to be private, you can't be private. You can't use today's technology and be private. No, I'm just saying you, but I'm saying anybody who wants to, if you want to be private, if somebody wants to be private, you cannot use today's technology. You know, you go back to old, yeah, I mean, you're private. You're not connected to the world. Anyway.
It's an interesting question, though, to think about. How many of you have seen the movie Harry Potter?
Of course.
Right? Wouldn't it be great to have that invisibility cloak? Is there a way to do it? Hill and I were talking about this earlier, and that's, is there a way that you can force companies to implement the privacy policies they espouse? Facebook, Google, whomever, right? They're all breaching the privacy policies that they say that they offer. Yeah, yeah. But I think geofencing has possibly a solution with smart contracts to enforce what they say they're doing on your device, so that it will be out of the hands of companies and governments overriding it. But I still think that's a fun problem to try to solve.
Hell, I would love to invest in this company if you have something like that.
Well, I mean,
consider me on top of your list.
Well, it's interesting that we all accept the privacy policy. I mean, I don't know how many people read their privacy policies before they download the next version of the Apple iPhone. Yeah. And do we know what's in there? And then we learn later that, you know, that Apple's selling our physical behaviors to Facebook. So I think that we're all of the generation, we want this so bad that we don't really care. So the question is, does that evolve into a place where in our home we really don't want Alexa listening to us when we're talking, even though we know Alexa's listening to us, but we don't realize that there are 100 to 200 employees that are sitting in the background literally listening to what we say in our house.
Everything, the gaming system, that.
So at what point do we decide that we take that back? And then how do we take that back? And is it in our living space that we take it back? Is that our space? Is this, if I own this building, is this my venue? Is this my hall? Do your phones work in here? What are the behaviors of the devices that I allow, and what are the rules?
Sure. Thank you very much. Yes, Shai.
Hi. About a couple of years ago, I was working with an entrepreneur, a guy I knew who came out of Boston Consulting Group and worked for Shai Agassi's A Better Place. They were doing infrastructure and charging for electric vehicles. And they had a really interesting concept. It was around SCAC, Smart Cities as a Service, to deliver smart cities at scale. It had, you know, a concept around aggregation, and it had a concept of innovation hubs to nurture and catalyze the next generation of startups in the space. I brought them a transformational banking partner. Their challenge, because they didn't have your $1 billion, was they ran the clock because the barrier, you talked about the pain point, but the barrier was at the municipalities who were just starting to hire chief innovation officers. But when you wanted to engage the right buyer, you had to get their, you know, smart city manager person who was clueless. So siloed organizations, just like in companies, no cohesion, were the barriers. What's changed? I love what you talk. Can we disintermediate, as Joe was talking about, direct to consumer? Are we at a place from a regulatory standpoint, from a government policy standpoint? Fascinating stuff, but love to hear what you have to say.
Can I just address it? And it's not really a nice way to address a really great answer. There was the first scooter death in Austin last week, and so that changes it. I mean, you know, a student was drunk, driving in the middle of the night, you know, pick up a random scooter, renting it. It's not Lime's fault or anybody's fault. It's that they're there and they exist without any rules of space applied to them. So I think that's the answer, unfortunately. It's the FAA. I had a meeting with 30 people in the FAA. I'll never forget this meeting. You walk in, I'm saying, look, we can keep drones out of your restricted airspace. Great meeting, lots of great questions. The person that was in charge came to me and said, you know, we really appreciate your time, but the FAA typically doesn't do anything until there's an accident.
Reaction.
Yep.
Wow. So how do you get around these barriers?
That's your point. It's it's getting disrupted, and so then the rules are going to have to come behind it in some way.
When
that
enough force comes from.
Right. Exactly.
Because the status quo is broken and.
Yeah.
I think, and then go direct to whoever the customer is, whoever has the problem. I mean, as in the case of Cosm Exchange, if you have solar and you want to use it and sell it,
I think direct to consumer now, we can do that without the government.
I think you can do it in
we'll just create such a swell of demand that
you can do it in a lot of ways. The areas that the government has, I mean, I think we can all do our part to advocate for smaller government because it's already too large here in this country and in many countries. Part of the problem and the concerns, you know, in China is that government is everything.
Government's the problem, not the solution.
Always. As I said before.
But if you increase the awareness through citizens, then the citizens will fight for it. And the government has to change. Right. Then you don't elect a person.
Consumer demand will drive.
Exactly. It's an awareness campaign is the key.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shai. Please, go ahead.
Hey, how are you? My name is Franklin Mena. I am currently building a space out in East New York, Brownsville. It's a makerspace, co-working space, and now doing aquaponic farming. So my question is something we should talk about more is sustainable jobs. Like, how do we create more sustainable jobs for those, like these people we're talking about, that necessarily need the educational system or don't vie with the educational system but need more hands-on training, so more vocational training. Where do you guys see that as far as in smart cities? Do you think there's a need for that, and where is that? Where are we going with that?
Definitely there's a huge need in that space. There's not many people trained. Even the countries that are building the smart cities, they are engaging the same resources without training them. There's a skill development program is needed for this purpose, and identifying the niche areas where the skills are lagging in the marketplace and creating a training program around it, and that will definitely have a good marketplace for you to succeed.
And by making the devices smarter, it makes the training easier, if you think about it, for those that are providing the support services associated with the devices. Farming is a great example because of watering systems and placing devices in the right location. If they come smart, you don't have to know how to program them, so this is simpler and easier training aspect.
This is an area, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Just to add to this, one of my friends has a company which has got the IoT devices which capture the temperature, the humidity, and all of that, and now he's rolling this as a solution for all the grape gardens, vineyards, actually. Mm-hmm. So that's one.
There's so much information that's already available to many people. Almost everyone has a smartphone today. Not everyone, but almost everyone has a smartphone. Every course at MIT is available for free online. That's not the answer to vocational, but like if you want to learn how to mend your plumbing, there's something available online for that. You want to learn how to install something, there's something available online. We walk around with these mobile smartphone devices, and so often it's used for entertainment only, and there's so much information out there to self-educate. It's about desire, and I don't know how you give that to people.
Look, can I say something here? Sure. Yes, thank you very much. It has nothing to do with job creation. People focus too much today on job creation. It's their obsession. We need to create more jobs. You have a job, you leave your job, you're obsessed because there are 3-4 months in between to find another job, so you go berserk because you didn't have a job. Get it out of your system. It's about wealth creation, not job creation. Yes. The government has to teach you how to create wealth as we do, rather than finding a job. Every time you look for a job, you're like a serf.
So that's why I would offer to you then, look, listen, the idea isn't that we're creating jobs, we're creating people, like she was saying, that are interested in having a space, so then they become the entrepreneurs of providing their services, or as consultants, or as,
Yes, today is the best time ever where you can really, we're all treated equal with all the technology we have. Mm-hmm. So it's how smart you are and what path you take. Stop relying somebody's going to bail me out by finding me a job. Even the people I hire, I tell them, I'm not giving you a job. I'm giving you a career path to make a shitload of money. If you don't know how to do it, you're out of here. I'm not here giving you a job. I don't want to give people jobs. I don't want to create jobs. I want to create, we need to create a number of people, lift them up so that all become, you know, self-sustaining, cash flow machine. With all the AI, the technology, the robotics, all this stuff, 50 years from now, 30 years from now, there's going to be much less jobs. So how do you survive? You force the government either to give them a job or you become a socialist so that they give you aid to sustain yourself because you cannot survive. This is no solution.
No, you're right. No, definitely. That's why I would offer.
This is no solution.
That's what I would offer. A lot of these individuals who are these entrepreneurs don't necessarily have the educational aspect of the business side of things, so they don't know that they can become minority certified. So they're already providing these services, they become minority certified, then they'll be able to get the contracts and provide their services and start their own team to be able to do so.
Yes, and absolutely, yeah. I agree with you. And I will add something to what you said, which is very true. Look, entrepreneurship is not 99% of the people who call themselves entrepreneurs are not entrepreneurs. I call them lifestyle entrepreneurs. They are entrepreneurs by default because they cannot find a job. So they call, I'm an entrepreneur. So they're looking for a sucker stupid VC who's going to fund their lifestyle. Let's say I live in New York City, I need $500,000 a year. So 5 years, $2.5 million. So I'm going to go and find a VC who's going to fund me with $2.5 million round A at a $5 million pre-money valuation to do that. This is not. The real entrepreneurs are the serial entrepreneurs who basically don't look at it as a job. The others look at it as a lifestyle. And they are enamored with their technology. They know nothing about finance, about building business, etc. This mindset has to change. This financial education has to come very early. You instead of saying, unfortunately, we don't have financial education like this. This is why the actual generation we have, the millennial and the Z generation, they're all relying on socialists because they were trained 20 years ago to think like that. And now you see the results. And if you don't change the results right now by doing what we're doing here at the Financial Policy Council, 20 years from now, it's going to be worse. You're going to have the technology, the robots taking over, more and more people relying on that, less and less jobs. So what do? So the only solution now you have is to resort to the state, to the government, to bail you out, which is wrong. So let's stop talking about job creation. Every president comes in, job creation. Let's talk about wealth creation. Let's empower people to think, yes, we're going to make you wealthy. This is why Trump's message is working. You know, I want to make you wealthy. I want everybody to be wealthy. Whatever you say it, whatever you think of him, his rash, his brush, he gets things done. He's going to be elected 100%. I'm not talking politics here. I'll tell you why. Just because there's no alternative. We're moving further to the left. There has to be a reverse of the tide. It's you, all of us, we're responsible for that. You have to pound, you have to talk about this. There's nothing wrong in being wealthy. There's nothing wrong. All the guys who say, oh, you know, you're bad, you're capitalist, you're thing. No, it's all good. You make good things, you create good stuff, you educate good people, you create independence. So let's stop talking. I don't want to hear about job creation. It doesn't work. It's like you're forcing them to find a job, and most of them are incompetent to even do their job. Today, even Jeff Bezos, everybody was explaining, we can find jobs forever for 10 billion people, but can they handle it? And they cannot handle it if there is no, you know what, we human beings are motivated by self-interest. If I'm not making money, I don't feel like doing this stupid job. What's making money anyway? But if I can find a way I can make money, I'm going to work 24/7, 7 days a week, because I'm incentivized. So we're forcing jobs on people who don't have neither are competent, nor they're going to make money to lift them up. This is all wrong. Because so far, until Donald Trump, we have presidents who are totally clueless as to business, as to wealth creation. Never, ever a president has ever talked about wealth creation other than this president right now. Never. It's like a taboo subject. I'm going to keep you stupid, dependent on the government, especially the African Americans and the Hispanics, etc. Now they're waking up. They're saying, I'm not going to take this crap anymore. I want to be independent. I want to be rich. This is how you have this increasing divisiveness and rivalry between the do's and don'ts, the have or haven't, sorry, the have and haven'ts. This has to change. I don't want to talk politics, but it has to, it's now getting more and more interconnected. The way we live, the way we think. It's all about wealth creation. There has to be a zillion more institutes like the Financial Policy Council who teach this, who do this, who practice this, and who empower the entrepreneur to reach out and do that. That's what's important. Stop thinking the conventional.
Yeah, no, then I would offer them helping people follow their passion. That's what I would offer instead of job creation, helping people follow their passion and do what they love.
Yeah.
So instead.
And create wealth,
Exactly.
Brag about
While
it.
They're doing, but naturally it's going to come, because obviously when you're following your passion, it's going to come. So
Thank you. People are like worried to talk about this. Don't be worried. Brag about it. Do it. Go ahead. We have 2 more questions. We have to go.
That was a very good discussion. Meaning, my question was coming from that. So I think partially you answered a lot of those questions, but I'll just come up with, my question is, we talked a lot about smart cities, right? How sustainable is the concept of smart city? Like giving an example of China, if you see Chinese smart city network, if I had to put it that way, it's based off of 12 cities today. And if you see 2012, it was around 7 cities. But then the impact it has had on the rest of the country is enormous. And I don't know if someone has studied that, but
what's your question?
My question is it sustainable? Sustainable in the sense like the impact the smart city has had in China is the East Coast has all the smart cities, but if you go west, anywhere from mid to west, it's a disaster.
What is your question? This is a comment. This is not a question.
So what is our thought? So again, the question is the concept of smart cities sustainable, and what is your thought about it? How do we expect the smart cities to sustain over a period of time? Like if we are putting grids, if we are having in network infrastructure, it will need energy. And I lost my thought process. My question was, do we have a plan to continuously fulfill the requirements to keep the smart cities smart and the needs of the people fulfilled over a period of time?
I'll try to address it. I think it has to continue to grow and evolve. The problems of today are not going to be the problems of tomorrow. There's going to be new problems. It's not a question of sustaining what is a solution today. Technology evolves, people evolve. The problems will change. And so it's going to be a question of constant disruption and constant change. And I think as long as problems are being solved and people want those solutions, it will continue to proliferate. It will continue to proliferate. Why would it not? If we wait only for the government, for example, in China, to institute it, it will be however it gets doled out.
So does it mean that at some point we are going to be like Panem, like that?
Let me say something. This is a philosophical question. Okay. The answer will not make any impact on your life. Who cares? Who cares? You're asking us a philosophical question. Who cares? What does this have an impact on your life? Is it sustainable or not? Of course it's sustainable. But what if it's not sustainable? So what? Your goal is to make money whether it's sustainable or not. To find a way whether you make money whether it's sustainable or not. It's not, oh, is it a philosophical question? Is it sustainable? I worry about that. Like all these people today who worry about climate change and the planet. The Earth has been there for 4.5 billion years. And these guys who's been in existence for 200 years, it just happened at their time. Now they have to worry about the planet that has been there for 4.5 billion years in existence. Who cares? Try to stay away from this philosophy. I mean, honestly, I'm telling you, I don't want to offend you, but try to stay away from these philosophical questions. This is not your job. You have a limited life, limited abilities. How do you use them to the best? To make money, whether smart cities are sustainable or not. This is not Harvard Business School, the pathetic people at Harvard Business School. Unbelievable. It's like this Harvard, they know it all. They know nothing. They're academics.
Right. Okay.
Go ahead, Louis.
As a guest here for the first time, let me say this is a wonderful forum, and I think it's very important what's been discussed here. And I could respond to about 10 things if you allow me. Oh, no, I can't do that. I'm going to pick one thing that I'm going to ask the panel to discuss because it's been part of my urbanology, having been a consultant for cities and villages and everything for years, and been to China many times and consulted there. It's called decentralization. We're talking technology. But I worked with a guy named Konstantinos Doxiadis, who was a great city planner, and he pointed out that the ancient cities were 10 square miles. Why? Because that's where people could walk to the market and walk to work and get home again. He said, what we've done in America and in other cities is we've created a cancer cell, the central city, and we should diversify and spread the central city.
Okay, what's your question?
The question is, what do you think of the centralization of the urban centers as the smart new cities like Washington, D.C., which is 10 square miles, in a livable city?
I agree with you that decentralization and distribution is very important. That's the reason the green smart cities will be satellite cities. They're not overloading the existing cities. So the decentralization is already happening through smart city concept.
Thank you very much, guys. Our next event is March 28th. Mark your calendar. And I hope to see you all there. Invite your friends too. You see the kind of stuff we do. Thank you very much for your time.